Hey everybody, welcome back to the Jesus and a Dream podcast, where we believe with Jesus and a Dream, anything is possible, nothing is impossible, and the possibilities are endless. I'm Caleb, this is Zach.
Hey everyone.
We want you to enjoy life and build God's kingdom.
So Caleb, tell me what's been inspiring you lately? Books, movies, shows, life?
Yeah, so I just finished Shoe Dog, which is Phil Knight's memoir, the founder of Nike, and it was awesome. It was probably, when I think about all of the books that I've read of historical people, I don't think I've ever identified with anybody more. Just his story, how it played out, who he is, and all of that, which has been really, really fun and cool. And I think one of the biggest things that not one of the biggest things, there were so many big things, but one of the things that I've been contemplating is, like, when we're talking about the Jesus and the Dream podcast or some of my other like business ideas or My Mountain and all of this stuff, I think a lot about branding, and we have a whole episode on that with Macy Maxon that was really good. But I think my understanding of branding is just a little bit bigger now because I read this book, and one of the things that I've been thinking about is across all cultures, socioeconomic statuses, and ages, there are two, I think, distinct things that always garner the same reaction. No matter who you are, you react the same way to these two things. The first one is winning. Everybody likes winning. And the second thing is losing, and everybody dislikes losing. And they are easy things to define for your life. When you are working, when you are playing, when you are in a relationship, you know the feeling of whether this feels like I'm winning right now or this feels like I'm losing right now. And it is always, I like the winning and I dislike the losing. Nobody has ever been like, I dislike winning, or like, I'm really enjoying losing right now. No, there's this element of, yeah, let's keep this going, or this needs to like end, or something needs to change, or whatever. And I think Nike does a really, really great job of, like, Nike literally means victory. Their products like communicate winning, like their communicates like winning, like being in their stores communicates this feeling of like, you can do it, like you can overcome, you can become great. And I think that's what all brands want, yet not all brands communicate because they focus on things that aren't that. And so I was walking through the Mall of America. The Mall of America inspires me greatly. That's my mall, which is so cool to say. Like, I go to the Mall of America. That's where I go and hang out. But I think of companies like Lego, like Nike, like Lululemon, like Apple. And I think they are all huge cultural brands. Like, you know all of those names if you're in Western culture, in America especially. I think you know like what all of those brands are. And then there are other brands that I think are successful, but they're not like culture brands. I think of like American Eagle, Aeropostale, Microsoft even. They have good products, but they aren't products that make you feel like, I can overcome anything. I want to go out and run through a brick wall right now. And I think, thinking about all of this, I've just been thinking about like the contagiousness, how contagious winning is. And so I've been just really thinking about, like, I think winning moves people. Another thing I've been thinking about is like sports games. Like, when you watch highlights or you're at a sporting event and something amazing happens, like the last second shot or the walk-off home run, people cannot help but to stand up and cheer. Like, you don't think, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to cheer right now. Like, it just happens. And I think there are some brands in the world that just make it happen. Like, you're just moved to do something great or to buy a product or to feel good when you are around certain things. Like, for example, sorry, this is so long, but like McDonald's, global brand, right? Huge brand, makes a lot of money. They are a cultural brand in all of the wrong reasons, right? Like, what they contribute to culture, like, isn't winning, it's actually losing. And nobody like brags about eating at McDonald's or like flaunts that they like eat at McDonald's. Some people really love it and they're proud of it, and good for them. Like, I don't think that's a problem, but I just think there's like a difference between a Nike and a McDonald's, where I think McDonald's might even be like a bigger company than Nike, but the feelings associated with it, which branding are, which branding is like you feel one way eating at McDonald's, even though you're getting a good product, you're getting it fast, it's helping your life. And another one of like buying new like running shoes or like watching a Nike commercial. There's definitely different feelings of watching a Nike commercial and a McDonald's commercial. All of that to say, like that's just been inspiring me lately. And I've been just trying to learn more about how do you move people without them even like realizing it.
That's good. I think I think we can all like identify, especially when you stand up and cheer for something amazing that happens, you don't think I'm going to cheer for this. It just, you're like, let's go. You just there's something that like happens emotionally when you get like invested in stuff. And the fact that like that can be recreated in like branding is just a marvel for real. But
yeah, I think it's really cool. Oh, and I was gonna say this like with Lego. I think Lego does it really well because they have a sense of winning where it's not like, and that's something I should say with like Victoria's Secret and Lego, I think are both winning brands. When you shop there, you feel like you're winning. And it's not in the case of like, sports of like I'm overcoming something, but with Lego, it's like you're going on an adventure with something you're probably emotionally invested in, Star Wars, Harry Potter, whatever else they make. And like you get to go on an adventure and you get to complete something and you get to have that feeling of completion, which is a feeling of winning. Or Victoria's Secret or Aerie, where it's like women get to feel confident, they get to feel sexy, they get to feel like they are wanted, are desired, that they can get the guy, that they can whatever that makes that like a cultural brand. I feel it like when I walk by the store and I'm not even like, I don't buy their products. And I think that is cool where winning and losing can be translated to a lot of different things. Not like obviously the simple one to think about is sports, but I think in any of our lives, like for example, like I think you in your marriage, like you can tell me if I'm wrong, but you probably feel when you're like winning and when you're losing, and not like arguments. I don't mean arguments. I mean like you guys and your health, or you guys and your family, or where your time is going, or what the status of your house is. Like even in relationships, there's this feeling of all the things that make up winning and losing that are actively going on inside of our souls that we like feel very acutely. I think. I don't think we're ever unaware of how we feel. And I think the difference between winners and losers, there's some people make a habit out of losing and are okay with doing that. And I think winners don't win all of the time, but when they lose, they recognize it and they try to overcome whatever it is that's making them lose.
So what about all of that is inspiring your life in specifics?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So I think like even with this podcast in general, it's like one of the things that I want to communicate or have that feeling about is just this idea of like, we can win. Like the way we talk, like I want to talk positively. When we talk about our losses, I want to talk about it in a way that's like, no, we're overcoming those things. When people are listening to this, I want them to have a certain feeling of what Jesus in a Dream is. And I think how that's changing my life is obviously it's good to be transparent and vulnerable at some times. But I think there's other times where like if you're about to walk onto a battlefield, you don't want your leader to be like, I don't know if we're going to win today. Like, what does that do? Like, that moves people in the wrong direction. That deflates people just as easily as like, hey, let's run through this brick wall for our family, for our friends. Like, we have to do anything at all costs to win today. That gets you pumped up. That gets you ready to move. And just in the same way as going, I don't know, like, ooh, there's a lot of them. They're dangerous. They're bigger. They have better weapons. I don't know what. It's like, but we have to fight. So what I've been kind of just contemplating is like when I carry myself publicly, or when I'm building these brands out, or when I'm building my teams, do I have my own doubts? Sure, 100%. Is there a time and a place to communicate those doubts? 100%. And I think I'm now leaning more towards, I always want to be the guy who believes. I always want to be the guy who encourages. I always want to be the guy who feels dangerous to be around. Like, dangerous in a good way for my teammates and for the people on my side, and dangerous in a bad way for the things that could oppose me, including my own fear and my own doubt. But also there's going to be people that are going to be like, I think I can snuff that out easily. And it's like, no, I don't even want you to feel like you can. I want you to be scared. Like if you're going to come against me. And I don't have any like active like enemies or anything like that, but that doesn't mean I won't. And I just want to carry myself in this way of going, no, what? My God's bigger. I believe in myself. I believe in my team. And I think people feel that when they walk in. And I think I used to be the kind of leader that was like, I felt like I had to be transparent all the time of like, yeah, you know what? I'm kind of scared right now. And it's like, what does that do to the people who are following me if I'm admitting that I'm scared? That probably just multiplies their doubt even more if they had any.
Yeah, it makes me think of in like every story and just the story arc framework, there's that moment where, right, the all is lost moment when like, oh, everything, it looks like you're going to win and all falls apart. That's in like every single book and every single movie. But I think, and what makes the best movies the best is what the character does in that moment. And I think that's what everybody identifies with. And that's that, like, you take the loss and then you turn it around and you go, but we're not going to lose again. And it's like, what can we learn? And I think that is, and the reason this is back to when I was studying story in college is like the reason the story framework is the way it is because it is a mirror of how we all deal with problems in our own life in, you know, any variety, but it is almost always the same where you have a problem, the conflict, you get your feet wet in it, you learn the ins and outs of it, you know, okay, maybe we can do this, we can win. And then it like something else goes wrong that has either does tank it or has the option to like completely destroy everything. And then it's in that moment where literally it says, if you're identifying the difference, the transition between act 2 and act 3, which is this low moment, your character will say the line, let's finish this. Like that's like, or some version of that. Right. And so, and that's because in our own lives, I think that's that moment where you take a loss and you go, I need to actively choose to either stay at this loss or to not accept this as the end of the book, because the end of the story, right? Because if a book ended and it's like everything fell apart, and there's books like that, like the tragedy or whatever, but it is unsatisfying because that isn't what we naturally want. And it's like, and I think this is just how, right, like you deal with everything in life is it has that similar flow. And I think that's why in books and in movies, and there's that moment of we will not accept this loss.
I can see it in your eyes. The same fear that would take the heart of me. Freaking Aragorn at the gates of Mordor. Heck yeah.
It's like we won't settle for losing. And I think that's such like, yeah, that's just like pure inspiration.
Yeah, it's contagious.
And so when you say like, I want to be that person that says that line in real life in moments, like, that is huge. Like, and because you're the one like voicing it and saying, we have two options here. We can sit and stay defeated or not. And then, so you're saying, I'm voting, we do not, you know, and yeah. I will not. So whoever comes with me comes with. And I think that is like, and I think that's just like, honestly, I think that's a Christ-like quality of like, just not staying in defeat. Like, I mean, there's so many verses of like, God's with us, like who can stand against us?
Right.
And so if you have like that in the back of your head and you run up against something and it's like, okay, hold on. If God's with us, then it's like the victory is there and we're just the ones who have to decide to go through until we get there. But yeah.
Okay. I got another thing that's been inspiring me that goes along with this conversation, because I think you're totally right. I think it's Christ-like. It's a type of faith, I think, where there's a song called That's the Power by Hillsong, and there's a line that says, there's a faith that stands defiant. And we've been singing that song a lot at church lately. And every time that line just always sticks out to me. I always think of like David going out against Goliath and saying like, who are you to defy our gods? Like, no, I defy you. And I think that's the story of heroism is, you know, what are we defying? And I think there is an element that I had to like struggle through of like, well, like I'm supposed to be nice and I'm supposed to be polite. And it's like, well, no, those aren't virtues. those aren't things that get you past the moment of, am I going to do this or not? What gets you past that moment is the defiant faith that goes, you know what, I got knocked down. You know what, I got, like Paul says, like, well, I'm knocked down but not defeated, struck down but not destroyed. Like he has this moment of like, I have this defiance. And I think it is super inspiring and super courageous, and I think it's super Christ-like to have that defiance in the face of opposition or evil or the adversary. And I think one of the most like practical, this is going to sound really funny, but I think one of the most practical ways that I see this in real life that really, really inspires me is when I see fat people running or at the gym. When I see people who are not in shape, doing something that's really hard, and you can tell it's really hard. Like the person who can run like 1,000,000 miles and like never breaks a sweat, like that doesn't inspire me. That's just like, yeah, good for you, buddy. That's cool. But when I see like a bigger person, an obese person, a fat person, like struggling, like running down the street full of sweat, huffing and puffing, going slow as can be, I drive past that and I'm like, frick yeah, dude. Like, good for you. That you're changing my life right now. Like, what am I looking at in my life that is hard that I want to do? Or when I'm at the gym and I see somebody who has obviously not been going for a long time and they're there and they made that decision that day. I don't know how long, maybe that's the first day. Who cares? They decide to get up and make a change in their life. And I love that it has to be the person, I think, that has that hero arc, that they got struck down, they got defeated, they got put in this place that isn't ideal, but they are going, nah, I'm not staying here. And I think, yeah, it's equally as depressing when it's like you see people who are able to make changes in their life that are just choosing not to. And I think that's part of like what I want for my life, is to be that person that goes, no, like I believe in you, believe in yourself. Like God believes in you, believe in yourself. And I think that's why we like make this podcast, right? Is because we're going, we believe in God. Like we believe in ourselves. You should too. Like God wants to do incredible things through us. And yeah, it's going to be hard, but who cares? The payoff's going to be awesome.
I think in this, I mean, this is maybe a different topic or a version we don't want to go or do want to go, but like that concept of whatever, the concept of like suffering, I think is really interesting, because we had a sermon on this recently at our church where they touched a little bit on suffering, and like it was a very, very small section of it, but it got me thinking about how it, I mean, this is how my brain works here. So I think of like the Count of Monte Cristo, and it's like, are you familiar with the story?
Nope.
So we read the book in like 7th grade or something, but the story is this guy's life is going perfectly well. He finds the love of his life, and, you know, he inherits his dad's business, and he's really excited. You know, literally everything is perfect. And he's happy, and he gets married, and then he basically, I think he gets, you know, falsely accused or whatever, and he gets thrown in prison for years. And it makes you so mad, because you're like, he does not deserve this, and like this sucks, and it's just, you know, 100% unfair. And so then he's in prison, and he's like plotting his revenge and stuff, and he goes through, and he like, I'm probably loosely interpreting this, but this is what I think about, is he goes through all of this stuff and he plots his revenge, and then he gets to the end and he gets the girl back because he's out of prison, and he got his revenge on everybody. And then there's like the victory he has at the end is so much better, because he's like, I didn't understand. Yes, I was happy. Yes, I had everything I wanted, but I didn't understand, and I don't appreciate it until now, because now I see not having anything and getting to the end. And like, that's kind of how he goes through his like revenge moments with everyone, is he like takes things away from them that they took from him. And he's like, now you know what it feels like, you know. But like, aside from the revenge part, like I think about that, where it's like, you don't, I mean, that's a common phrase, is like, you don't appreciate, you know, the sunshine days until you get the rainy days, whatever. Right. But I think the conversation of back to this moment where you have somebody going to the gym and saying, and I think I agree with you, it is inspiring, because when you see someone working so hard, you know that that's going to be a long journey, and they know it's going to be a long journey. And you're like, dude, yes, keep going. And so I think that's where that suffering piece I think we live in a culture where we try to avoid pain and suffering at all costs.
Yep.
And I'm not saying we should go out and seek pain and
Right.
suffering, but I think there's a moment, and I think there's probably 5 Bible verses on this, but there's a moment where you need to like almost appreciate the suffering, or at
Yep.
least like identify where you are in the suffering and say, it's the classic phrase of like, when you're a kid and something's hard and your parents are like, it's building character. And it's like, it is. And as much as you hate hearing that, there are things that you go through in life that do build character. And I think this is that hero mentality, is when you're in the middle of fighting through something, you should look at it and say, I am going to come out of this as someone who survived this and as someone who now knows better than this, rather than coming out of it and saying, hey, let me tell you about how awful my last week was. You need to feel bad for me.
Right. And I think that is like, I'm just going to insert this here and then I want you to keep talking, but I think that is the difference between like winning and like a loser mentality and a winning mentality. Is I think winners put the victory in their own hands, and I think losers let other people win. And I think that's like that victim mentality of going like, oh, all this bad stuff is happening to me. It's like, yeah, that sucks, and I'm sorry that like happened to you, but I also believe that you can like overcome it. Like, do you believe that you can overcome it? I think that is like, when you're talking about our culture right now, I think we do seek comfort so much that when comfort is taken away from us, it's somebody else's fault that it got taken away. And because it's somebody else's fault, there's nothing I can do about it except for complain or quote unquote spread awareness. But I don't believe that to be true. Like, I think that you hold like a lot of decisions in your hand. Yes, like sometimes odds are stacked against you, and that sucks. And I'm not saying that it doesn't suck, but I think all the more better to like write a great story for your own life and to approach it in a way that goes, yeah, this last week sucked, but guess what I did? I got through it. I'm still here. I took another step. I'm 1% better than I was yesterday. I'm 1 step closer to my goals. I took 3 steps backwards, but I took 1 step forward. That gets me, I'm getting fired up just talking like this. And another thing that I wanted to add in, sorry, this is a big interruption, but when we're talking about this suffering adversity, I think of like baseball. It's like, let's say like there's a sweep, like 4 games, like in the World Series, you have to win 7 games. Or you have to win 4 games out of 7. But if you win 4 games, then there's not 7 games because you just won it. Like, that's cool. That's fun. The winners are winners. Great. But when it gets down to game 7, each team has won 3 and it's tied at 3 and the bottom of the 9th, and there's 2 outs and there's 2 strikes and it's a full count. And the person up at the plate hits a home run to win the freaking World Series. And they didn't win by 20 runs. What that does to people is incredible. And I think we got to take that same mentality to like real life. It's like, yeah, you could be the count and go like, I am just so OP. I just destroy everybody. Everything that I do goes well. Everything that I do, I'm super successful at. And it's like, even that will get old to you. You'll still like it. You'll not dislike it. It'll get old to you. But those moments where it's like, okay, the enemy, the other team battled back. The other team took me down. The other team scored 7 points in a row. Like, what are we going to do about this? And when you score 8 points in a row, that's way cooler than just scoring 8 points. Being 8-0. So anyways, I think, yeah, that's suffering. It adds the character. It adds the drama. It adds the faith and the belief that, okay, I can get through whatever life comes at me next. Whatever comes at me next. So sorry, that was a long interruption, but I was just thinking of like those 2 things of, yeah, I think you're totally right. Suffering produces just a better story in general.
And I think, yeah, like identifying, and I think that's honestly like a part of it is just like being aware and thinking in those terms of things of like just taking a moment to look at your own life and say like, this sucks. And it's like, okay, yes, you can identify that it does suck.
Yeah,
like,
there's nothing wrong with that.
And then the next, and it's like, honestly, yeah, it's like, what do you do from there? And I think that is so, and I think that's what matters to God in a lot of ways, and where Jesus says like, I care about the heart. And why does he care about the heart? Because the heart is like, I think the soul and the part that is eternal. And so when he says, I care about how that piece of you reacts to something and not anything else is less important than how your heart reacts to something, because I think that's just like you said, like when just accepting the defeat or not. And it's like, so life could be falling apart and you could say, I will not stand for this and I will fight to get out of this or to do what's right. Or, you know, like we talked about last podcast, the Free International guys, it's like they will fight till the end to save as many people as possible. And it's like, okay, did you save all of them? Probably not. But how many did you save? Did you save only one of them? Or did you not even save anyone, but you tried so hard? That is what matters. And I don't want to
There's no shame in that, though.
Right.
I think there's a lot of people who would rather not try because what if I fail? And they think there's going to be shame in that. But I'm here to tell you, I think Zach would say the same thing. If you try and fail, that is an honorable, there's no shame in that.
Right. And I don't want to sound like, you know, the teacher who's like participation award, right? But at the same time, it's like a participation award to fight against evil is great. Like I think there should be awards like, and that's, but yeah, I think that whole, that piece of suffering, I think, and yeah, I would love if like our culture could change the narrative slightly on just viewing suffering and saying, this is life. And we need to stop pretending that it's the worst thing ever, but at the same time stop like just avoiding it at all. Like we should, I don't know words, but like not saying we should not avoid suffering at all costs, but I think there needs to be a moment where you identify in your own life and say, this is part of life, and stop expecting life to go through at 100% comfort level the whole time through, because then it's like, are you really living life? I don't know. And I think that's unrealistic.
That's where, again, we're not like seeking out suffering just to suffer, but I think there is this element of like, if you want to win, if you want to be great, it has to come with this understanding that you have to overcome something. Like you have to defeat something. You have to conquer something. Like Muhammad Ali, like one of the greatest boxers of all time. He didn't just wake up one day and go, I'm the greatest boxer of all time. Call me the greatest boxer of all time. No, he went and trained, and then he went out and defeated some people. And he has one of my favorite quotes ever. He goes, suffer now and live forever like a champion. Like, that's part of it. Like Tiger Woods. Like, he didn't just wake up one day and go, I'm the greatest golfer in the world. Call me the greatest golfer in the world. No, he trained. He put his body through hell. And then he went out and defeated other people. So it's like, if you want a great marriage, if you want a great relationship, if you want a great career, if you want a great business, if you want to be great, then you have to understand that, like exactly what you're talking about. It comes from the heart. Like Jesus says, what? In this world you will have troubles, but take heart. I think you nailed that. For I have overcome the world. Okay, yeah, there's our general giving us I see it in your eyes, the same fear that would take the heart of me. Like, what is Aragorn even saying right there? He's saying, like, I know that it's going to be hard. I know that we might die right now. I know that you've sacrificed everything, but will you follow me one more time? Jesus is saying the same thing. Like, take heart. I've overcome the world. Will you follow me one more time? Will you look at the troubles and go, yeah, all right, I'm willing to. I'm willing to go search for these kids. I'm willing to wake up early and go to the gym. I'm willing to do the hard thing and forgive. I'm willing to communicate with my wife when I just want to go out and play golf. Yeah, it's hard. Overcome it. Like, be that person. Be great. I think, again, there's just like this Christian modesty that is not biblical. Like, we are supposed to have this faith that stands defiant, this faith that makes us more than conquerors, this faith that helps us to overcome. Like, we're supposed to be exceedingly great. And sometimes that comes at defeating the things in our life that we want to be nice and polite to because we think that's the thing that we're supposed to do. No, knock it off. Be great. Do something great. Be obedient. Follow the Lord into the valley of the shadow of death. Follow the Lord to stand before Goliath. Follow the Lord to walk around the cities of the walls of Jericho. If you don't, you don't. And nobody cares. And nobody will remember you. For real. Do you remember the 10 spies' names? Nope. You remember the 2, though. Do you remember David's brothers? No. But we remember David. Maybe if you're some weird Bible geek like me, you know their names. But I'm not telling you them.
I will say something about, so when we say, okay, maybe we're not going out actively seeking suffering. However, I was thinking about this as you were just talking, and I was like, you know what? I think in a moment when you are comfortable, I think that is a moment that you should actively go out and seek suffering in this way, by identifying other people that are suffering and fighting for them. And I think that is a really, really big piece about, like, I think that's a really, really, it's hard because you don't want to, and it's optional, right? Optional in the way that's like, I can go to church and I can live my life and I can just say hi to everyone and go home and not take part in other people's suffering to help them out. However, when you talk about, you know, just those big defeating glorious moments when like you've conquered something, and you let's say you want to be that person that goes like, let's fight, let's never give up, then go and like help. There is no shortage of people suffering. That's what I am like realizing, like it is in, and even the people who you don't think are suffering in some way. And that's where, because when you are suffering and people come alongside you, that is a huge game changer. And that is one of the greatest things that can happen. And I think that is when people feel the most connected to their community and and that is like one of the most Christ-like things, is when people come and help you in your suffering, you're like, okay, I understand what Christ is talking about. And then when you go and help those people, you are being Christ-like in doing that, because and that's where I'm saying, like, okay, don't go out and seek suffering by like, I'm just going to go
put myself in a dumb
put myself in a dumb position. But in another way, like the guys from Free International who are trying to rescue all these kids, it's like they are choosing a hard thing to do, and they are going to go and do it. And it is like suffering. But on the other side, they are going, but I am pulling you out of lifelong suffering. And that is worth weeks and weeks of, you know, however many weeks or months it takes me to find you and rescue you. That is still, that makes all of the suffering like worth it. And I think that is just such a big piece of just what Christ calls us to do as Christians, is like to help each other in that way. And I think that, it's so easy to push off because we don't want to get too involved in people's lives and like different stuff like that. But because I'm thinking about, I shot some video for Salvation Army did a big Down for the Challenge event, and I was fortunate to do some video for them. And I love their event because the whole thing is fundraising to fight homelessness. And they had a Vikings legend, Chris Carter, come and give a little keynote speech, which was really awesome. And it was very inspiring because he was just saying, like, life comes at you, and he's like, there's no timeouts. And I don't know why that just really stuck with me, but I was like, there aren't timeouts. And so when you have people fighting for their life and they don't get a timeout, and you're somebody who's in a place that you basically would say, I'm kind of in a timeout right now, like everything's going well, then it's like, maybe use that time to go and help someone else get their head above water and stuff like that. And because his story was really cool, because he said he calls himself a Salvation Army kid because his family was struggling and Salvation Army helped them. And he's like, I give so much credit to what they do and how helpful they were. And like, they were just, and that's where you see people stepping in to other people's suffering. And it's like, that's what Jesus did, as he stepped into the suffering and helped. And I think, that I just think is like, don't be afraid of that, because if you step in to help someone in their suffering, it will be absolutely worth it, I would say.
And then I'll add to this too. I think, and this is why we do the podcast, or why I had the idea for this podcast, is because, I was chasing my dreams. I was chasing Jesus, and it was super hard. Like last year, I think I was like coming back up the mountain, where like I had like walked through the valley of the shadow of death. Like I was in this place where it was like, like this sucks. And like, as we were starting this podcast, it was coming out of that. And I think that was just God's timing. And I think it was this idea where I'm at a place where like, I am very comfortable chasing Jesus in the dream, like you were saying. And now what I want is to identify the people that are coming after me, because I think those are the people that I can help the most. And I think when we're talking about go and find the people that are suffering, I think the best people to find, even in like this story about Chris Carter, is like he was a Salvation Army kid. So he understands the people who need the Salvation Army. So he's going to step into their lives and go, it's going to get better because I got better. And I think that's where like those are the people you want to find and help whenever you can. But if you're in a place where you're like, I'm comfortable and I do want to help people and I do want to do hard things, I wouldn't suggest just going off and doing something crazy, because I think that is dumb and then you're inviting suffering that you aren't equipped for. But what you can do is look back in your life and go, what did I suffer through? What did I struggle through? What did God help me overcome? I should find people who are struggling through the same things, because now I have a testimony. Like Jesus says, like, overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of the testimony. Like what Jesus did for me, and then like what I did in that same story, right? And I would say like, yeah, I love that, where it's like, yeah, we're doing this podcast because we're chasing our dreams. We want to help other people who are coming after us. Like I think someday it's like, you're the struggling filmmaker right now. Someday you won't be, but you should go out and find the struggling filmmaker and go, hey, it can get better. It's going to keep going. Believe in yourselves. All those things. Like I was extremely like out of shape 2 to 3 years ago, and now I'm getting back into shape, and I want to like look at people and go like, you can do it. It's possible. Like it's going to be hard. Keep going. Go to the gym, stretch, eat well, drink, sleep, have good community. It's possible. And I think just stepping into the suffering and choosing to do that hard work that is basically going, it's possible to see change. I think that is one of the most moving things that you can do, and one of the most Christ-like and loving things that you can do, because then it's not just like information. Like it's not just like do this and do that. It's like, hey, I did this and I did that, and look at me now. This can be your future as well. And I think that's such a powerful, powerful thing, because like you talked about in the last podcast, it's like the person who first broke the 4-minute mile. Like nobody thought that was possible, and then somebody did it, and now there's sub 4-minute mile runners all over the world. There's lots of them. It just takes one person to go like, hey, it's possible. Like the Wright brothers. Hey, we can fly. No, you can't. Bet. Now it's like the most normal thing in the world, right? We don't even think twice about going 30,000 feet into the air at 300 miles an hour. Like that's not even a question in our minds. Somebody has to go, hey, I've done it, and it's possible. And then they have to go find those people who are in the same thing. And I think that will be most fulfilling. And I think that's what, when we're talking about passion, like what do you enjoy doing and what are you willing to suffer through? Like the things that you're willing to suffer through are the things you overcame. Like you'll be passionate about helping people in that way if you go out and find them. And I think that's, again, last thing is like, that's why our salvation should be so precious to us, and our salvation story should be so precious to us, because it's like, I was like this and now I'm like this, and it's because of Jesus. If you find people with similar stories, they're probably going to respond in more positive ways, because they can look at you and identify with your story.
Yeah, I don't have any other thoughts.
Yeah, me neither. Love you guys. Thanks for watching.
All right, see you next time.